Hey, it's Mike from the Life In Attleboro Podcast. Our first ever sponsor, Confidence Fitness, has an unbelievable offer for you. 3 free workouts with absolutely nothing to lose. You'll also get an in-body scan to measure your current body composition, and you'll get their brand new meal prep checklist. All of those things completely free. You cannot beat it. All you have to do is go to lifeinattleboro.com, and you'll see the link right there on our homepage. I'll also include the link in the show notes of this episode. Confidence Fitness is located at 453 South Main Street. Confidence Fitness. Strength for life, strength for sports. And now, on to the show. You are listening to the Life in Attleboro Podcast, where we interview the city's most interesting people who are making a positive difference in our community. Hey everyone, I'm the host of the Life in Attleboro Podcast, Mike Sullivan. Training a puppy or a dog can be a tall task, but it's what today's guest specializes in, and her fear-free approach to it is what gets the results her clients are raving about. Enjoy episode 34 of the Life in Attleboro Podcast. Okay, joining me now is Kristina Lowe. She is the owner of Kristina's Critters, located at 13 Bank Street in downtown Attleboro. Kristina, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life in Attleboro Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Kristina, so you are a credentialed dog trainer offering a fear-free approach. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so the dog training industry is actually unregulated, which means that anyone can call themselves a trainer and charge for services. Those of us who are committed to the field get certifications backed by veterinary behaviorists, and the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior states that there is no place for what's called positive punishment in dog training. So positive punishment is the addition of an unpleasant stimulus to make a behavior less likely to occur. So think about prongs, choke chains, spray bottles, leash corrections, even verbal no's. And a fear-free approach means that positive punishment won't be used, and the welfare of the animal is prioritized throughout the entire training process.
Wow, I did not know that it was unregulated, so I just learned something right off the bat there. That's very interesting. So why do you believe in this fear-free approach?
So I worked at the North Attleboro Animal Shelter as the department head / animal control officer, shelter manager for 3 years. And when I worked there, I saw a true need to put the right methods into the hands of owners, because I found that people would reach out for help, specifically for aggressive and reactive behaviors. And the trainers that were often very willing to take on those cases were favoring maybe outdated methods that used more heavy-handed approaches.
Gotcha.
And what I learned was that behavior modification, which is addressing the underlying reason why the behavior is occurring in the first place, is what is needed. And so they need the opposite. They don't need a heavy hand. They don't need all of this alpha dominance energy. They actually need science-backed methods. And by addressing the underlying reason why the behavior is happening in the first place, rather than suppressing it with a correction, then we're able to change how the dog feels about a stimulus. And this is where the magic happens. So I was really driven because I realized that I could potentially help more dogs and people if I was in a different profession than the one I was in. I could help them before they ended up with us.
Wow, there's a true science behind all of this that I'm learning. There's just a completely different approach that I never even knew existed, but it all makes sense, Kristina. That's really cool. You piqued my interest when you mentioned North Attleboro Animal Control Department. What are some of the more interesting, tense, unexpected moments you had during your years there?
That's a really good question. I feel like it was honestly my dream job back in the day, and I worked there from 2016 to 2019. So I'm very happy to be back as a volunteer now. But I would say it's a lot of handling wildlife, and working in a shelter environment is much more on the fly. So like when I'm training and I'm in studio and I'm with clients or dogs that I'm developing a relationship with, there's a lot more control to it. Whereas when you're in the shelter world, it's, okay, let's figure this out on the fly now. You have a dog who's scared of you, and you've got to just work through it and making sure that staff stay safe, that you stay safe, and that the dog stays safe. And the same with wildlife. And I think what you learn is that if you just understand the body language cues, whether it's wildlife, whether it's a domesticated animal, you can navigate around that animal in a very low stress way that keeps everybody safe. And there's never a need for heavy handedness or abrasiveness or anything like that. So it was a lot of fun.
I bet. I can tell just by your demeanor how much you actually care about the animals that you train, just having a simple, quick conversation with you. I'm curious, what is your background? How did you learn all of this? How long have you been doing it?
I went to school for pre-vet and animal science. And when I was there, I never really wanted to be a vet. I just wanted to work with animals. And that was always my passion. And I had actually volunteered at the North Attleboro shelter when I was younger. And at the time, there was this animal control officer there named Karen, and she was there for 30 years, and she was just amazing. And being in the animal field, there's a difference between loving animals and then really having empathy for them. And she was the first person I met who was just deeply empathetic, and it was safe to express all those feelings around animals, whether it was advocacy or a gentle approach, and nothing was rushed, right? I very much in my head while I was going to school for pre-vet animal science was like, I just want to run an animal shelter, and that's all I wanted to do. So I did end up going on to do that for the 3 years. And I think when I was there, I was able to work with vet behaviorists and other credentialed trainers, and it was really interesting to see this whole world open up that I hadn't learned about during my college career. So I went on to get what's called the Catch Canine Trainers certification. So that was my initial dog training credential. And then I got what's called a CPDT-KA, which is a widely accepted and respected credential in the field. Those of us who really want regulation try to get this CPDT-KA because it's essentially an oath that you won't use positive punishment. And I ended up getting my fear-free certification. And then right now, I'm actually in my dissertation year of getting my master's in clinical animal behavior online through the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. So the reason I'm getting that is because I'm ultimately going to become an applied clinical animal behaviorist, which is essentially like an animal psychologist.
All right, Kristina, that is very impressive. So what other kind of animals have you worked with besides dogs?
I've worked with donkeys, pigs, goats, birds. And what you realize is that training is the same regardless of species. And it's just all about knowing the species-specific signals. That way you can make sure that the animal feels safe throughout the process and you understand what they're communicating to you. But the principles of training are all really the same, where you're using a gesture, a verbal cue, a marker, and a reward to reinforce the behavior. Gotcha. Yeah, it's really cool. I worked with donkeys in college. I didn't even really understand training at that point, but we did livestock shows with them. And cool. That was probably the first animal that I trained. And then I worked with pigs, and they're wildly intelligent. Goats, the same thing. And what I like about it being on the fear-free side of things is it really shows that you could have these big, impressive animals, or these animals that maybe a lot of people don't understand. And that kind of harmful heavy-handedness translates into training no matter the species. And so it's really cool to show that, no, we can do this without punishment, and we can handle these really incredible animals just by using positive reinforcement and rewards.
That is incredible that kind of all species, all animals use the same approach, really.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you've taken all of this education, all of your experiences over the years, and you've turned it into your own business called Kristina's Critters. How long have you owned Kristina's Critters?
So Kristina's Critters was actually initially a blog that I created in college, and I had no idea that it would become my business name later on. But I would say, I believe I opened somewhere between 2018 and 2019. So I'd say I've owned it for about 6 years.
Good for you. All right, let's talk about this. When is it time for a dog owner to give you a call?
That's a good question. So it's never too early or too late to call. So with puppies, we want to start right away so we can work together through their critical socialization periods. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people feel like 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks is too early to start. But it's actually not. And when you sign up for Foundations with me, we'll intentionally pace the program so you have support during that early stage, but then also that teenage stage, which is 6 months to a year.
Gotcha.
And then with adult dogs, it's never too late to start. So a lot of times people say, is my dog too old? Can I not change this? And behavior can change at any time, regardless of the species, right? I work mostly with human-directed aggression, so dogs who bite humans. within the home or outside of the home. In these cases, the sooner you call, the better, so we can get to work in preventing the behavior and modifying it to ensure the safety of people and of your dog, and ensure that they can likely stay in the home with you. So yeah, definitely the sooner you call, the better for aggression cases.
Absolutely. Makes sense to me. So you mentioned foundations. I'd like you to run through the different classes that you offer, from the reactive rover to stranger danger, and even a self-guided online course.
Sure, yeah. Reactive Rover is 6 sessions. They take place, all of my programs take place in person or online via Zoom. And believe it or not, working together online via Zoom is very similar. I might be seated, but you guys are out in the world implementing just like you would be in person. So Reactive Rover is mainly for dogs struggling with leash reactivity. So barking, lunging, pulling on the leash when passing dogs or people in public. And then I also use that program for resource guarding or multi-dog conflict within the home. So if you had 2 dogs that weren't agreeing, that program would be used for that. Stranger Danger is my most popular program. This is really the program of why I became a trainer. It's what I love, which is probably why it's the bulk of my clients. I end up working with people for 3 months or more, and it's for the heavy cases, the more severe behaviors that have been going on for a long time. And when you sign up for that program, you do consent to agree to work with a vet behaviorist if needed. And a lot of times when you're working with more dangerous behaviors, you do need to consult a vet behaviorist to rule out underlying medical conditions. And sometimes behavioral medications can help to take the blinders off so the dog can at least learn. And it doesn't mean it's forever, and you could always wean off of them. Or for some dogs, it ends up really improving their quality of life. We get really close, me and my stranger danger clients, because I become very invested in them. You get text support in between sessions. They get write-ups. I have what I call the talk you off the ledge sessions, where something happened, things have been going great, but then suddenly something happens, and we can just jump on a call and just reground and be clinical about it. Like there's always a reason why a behavior happens. And so we can break it down. And then the foundations is simple. That's mostly just if you wanted to work on basic commands or you had a puppy. And then the self-guided foundations I created because my price point is a bit higher to work together. And it's mainly because of everything that gets put into it. Like you're not abandoned week to week. You have a lot of support. But I created the self-guided foundations so that way if somebody had a puppy, but they really couldn't afford to invest in a full program, they would still be able to have access. And it's just like working with me in person. I actually recorded the program with my first dog, Huck. So he's the star of that. So it's very special to me. Yeah. So like right now I have clients in Las Vegas, California, Canada. So I'm not limited by location. So I do love the in-person because I actually get to be there with the dogs, but we can work together regardless of location.
That is so cool. So you mentioned in person. Do the dogs go to your facility or do you go to the house?
Yeah, so we do a combination, and it really depends on the case. If a dog is afraid to get in the car, we'll start at the home, and then we'll work towards the studio. But the simple answer is the studio on Bank Street, Capron Park when we need to be in public, and then in their home. And sometimes online via Zoom. Like I like to do muzzle conditioning online because then I'm not there as a trigger or excitement factor. And it's better to work on some things when they're completely calm instead of excitable.
That makes total sense. So it's not just dogs that you work with. You also work with cats. What does training a cat look like?
So cats are fun. It's a very unique client who ends up reaching out because I don't think people realize that cat trainers exist or that behavioral help for cats exist. So it's mainly like everything else, understanding their primary needs and then adjusting and adapting their environment to adjust the behavior. So we can trick train, like my cats know sit, down, paw, touch. You can train them just like any other species. But when it comes to solving behavioral issues like inter-cat aggression or litter box issues, it's really about understanding what cats need as a baseline and then tweaking and manipulating the environment so that way the behavior is less likely to occur.
Got you. I'm going back to this now, but you mentioned when you have 2 dogs in the house who might not be getting along together, sometimes dogs and cats don't get along all that great. Are you able to help in that situation too?
Yes, I think when a dog is truly cat aggressive, I will always be honest that it's dangerous to continue to have them together, and oftentimes separation might be needed. In the case of maybe somebody adopted a dog who they didn't really cat test and then they bring it into the home and it's just simply not going to work. But yes, I definitely help, and I consider the welfare of the cat too. So we often think about some dogs like to chase, so we definitely work on the chasing behavior. But then also on the cat side of things, a lot can be done with the environment, like creating these highways and byways for the cat to be able to go vertical and then be able to go like across the top of the wall. So that way they don't have to be on the ground in the hallway getting chased or cornered. So when you have a cat dog issue, you definitely, the needs of both animals are considered when you work with me, because I want to make sure that cat could just simply avoid the situation if they want to.
Wow, you put next level thought into every single process that you have created. That's really cool. Kristina, is there anything else you'd like the people of Attleboro to know when it comes to either taking care of their pets and about yourself, Kristina's Critters?
I just think if you've been hesitating on reaching out to work with a trainer, definitely reach out, do a consultation call with me. I love talking and connecting with people, and you and your dog really become like family to me, and your success is really important to me. If you've been thinking about it, definitely reach out, and I'd love to meet you and your dog or cat.
Awesome. And the consultation call, is that free?
Yes. Yep. You get a free 15-minute consultation, or if you're an aggression case, you get 30 minutes.
Even better. Nothing to lose. Risk-free. Kristina Lowe, owner of Kristina's Critters, thank you so much for being a guest on the Life in Attleboro podcast. It was really nice to meet you.
It was awesome to meet you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. There is so much more to training dogs than I thought, and Kristina taught me a lot about the science behind it all. Very cool stuff. If you or someone you know is in need of dog or cat training, Kristina could be the perfect fit for your pet. You can find the link to her website in the show notes of this episode. Hey, I want to tell you about our new sponsor, Hoban Accounting Services. If you're a small business owner, you know how much of a hassle it can be to keep track of every penny earned and every penny spent. But thankfully, Hoban Accounting Services is on a mission to heal your headaches and fizzle your frustration when it comes to crunching those pesky numbers. Hoban Accounting Services has helped local businesses for more than 7 years. That's when Nicole Hoban, a proud mother of twin girls, launched her business. She's a QuickBooks Pro Advisor with tons of awards to her name. If you mention the Life in Attleboro podcast, you'll get 10% off for your first 6 months. If you'd like to support a small business owner in our city, just tap the link in the show notes of this episode and Nicole will be in touch. Hoban Accounting Services. A great bookkeeper should be an asset, not an expense. Have you signed up for the Life in Attleboro email list? More than 950 people have. If not, you're missing out on exclusive benefits, including early access to every new podcast episode, special savings at Attleboro restaurants and businesses, behind-the-scenes video and insight, and you'll stay in the know about cool events in our great city. Just go to lifeinattleboro.com, and you'll see the sign-up display right there on the homepage. You'll also see the sign-up button at the top of our Life in Attleboro Facebook page. And if you know someone who would make a great guest on our podcast, please shoot us an email at lifeinattleboro@gmail.com. Life in Attleboro is a great thing. Support our community, promote positivity, and make a stranger smile. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Life in Attleboro podcast.